touched with the startups was this kind of excitement and buzz and energy that we had in Finland. It was very, very tangible, I would say. So I got very excited about it, and you know, we used to work as a journalist, so I decided to go right to the source and apply to one of these initiatives, and this is how I ended up working there. But I'm going to go on and start my presentation about my own personal story, what got me there. So as a kid, I got very obsessed with things, music, movies, games. And my first kind of obsession at the age of 7 was this thing here. How many guys of you have seen this movie? Raise your hands. Amazing. Yes, the best movie of all time. So this guy here and that bunny there got me super excited about basketball. I was obsessed, you know, I spent so much time outside of school at the basketball yard, you know, like honing my skills. At the same time, while I was, you know, on my way to become world's best basketball player, what was happening in our home country, Finland, I would say the economy was, and the nation was booming. So for instance, in 2000, we got our first female president elected in Finland. At the same time, the economy was booming, and one of the main factors to this kind of a boom was this company here, Nokia. I would say it was like our crown jewelry of our nation. You know, like there was a lot of hopes attached to it. And if you think about the university students, especially the business and like technology students, for them Nokia was the dream job where you can land after graduations, right? And if we think about the entrepreneurship as we know it now in Finland and worldwide, that wasn't the case at that time. You know, like there wasn't a proper distinction of what is it to run a flower shop and being an entrepreneur, what is it to be a founder of a software company. And if I think about like the best universities in Finland, the teachers there were actually saying that being an entrepreneur is the worst thing that could happen to you. Honestly, I'm not joking. So I'm not going to mention any names though, you know. So yeah, you know, for you to understand how big this thing was for our nation is, in 2000, Nokia was producing over 31% of all the mobile devices worldwide. So, you know, I was, you know, like, I'm not really paying attention to all of this because I was on my way to become Finland's world's best basketball player. So at some point I did realize, it took me around like a decade maybe, to understand that I didn't have what it takes to become a professional basketball player. So I kind of pivoted and changed my passion, and I decided to pursue a career in writing. So I thought like the best way how to do it is to actually pursue a career in journalism. That being said, I was on my way of becoming something great. This thing happened 2007. Steve Jobs introduced the first iPhone to the world, and I think companies like Nokia and Samsung as well, you know, understood how left behind they were, how in a way like comfortable they were. So this was where quite often people say that the kind of decline of Nokia started in a way, symbolically speaking. So yeah, and then in 2013, Microsoft announced that it is acquiring the hardware part of Nokia. It was a huge. I think this is where the Finnish nation kind of understood how, you know, how drastic the situation were in our country. So I wouldn't exaggerate by saying that the atmosphere in our country was quite depressed. You know, like even I, as a young whatever, you know, I was kind of feeling what was happening there. At the same time, we had a bunch of young students in Finland, you know, like sensing the atmosphere and realizing, okay, we need to actually do something about it. So what they did is they traveled to the place where all the world's greatest innovation, the most exciting companies are brought up. So they traveled to the world's best universities, one of the places being MIT. And what they saw there was something that was completely on the contrary what was happening in Finland. So there, the brightest students of universities, instead of like jumping on this kind of corporate journey, they were building their own startups, their own companies. You know, they weren't going and working as a consultancy firms, and they were coming up with their own ideas, and instead of competing against each other, these students, they were working together. So with this kind of new inspiration, they took these lessons back home to Finland and decided, okay, we need to come up with something similar, right? So they established a society called ALTIS, Alta Entrepreneurship Society, with a kind of great mission of building something similar that they've seen in the States. But before that, they had to, you know, like before actually creating this, you know, like brilliant companies and creating thousands of jobs, you know, we saw that we had, as a nation, we had some challenges, right, that we had to address. And there were various challenges, one of them being this thing, and maybe you guys are familiar with this, like fear of failure. So, you know, as an individual or professional, failure meant something huge, especially in Finland. Like if you fail as an entrepreneur, you were stigmatized largely. It meant like if you went to a bank to apply for a loan, like they wouldn't give you the loan. So there was a huge stigma attached to this idea of failure. So the idea was to start changing the connotation of the word failure. You know, start to kind of celebrate, like, so to understand that failure means that you actually embrace the chance to kind of succeed. So that was one challenge. Another one was thinking too small. So we as a nation, we're kind of like small and shy. We don't really like make fuss about the great things that we've created. You know, if a Finnish founder is like, yeah, I'm going to go and take over the world, it's like, you know, go to Sweden and Norway. You know, the idea was that you're launching, you're going to be a global company from day one. You know, like, we're going to take over the world like from the day one. So, and you know, we had great mentors coming to a murky gray hall at the time. Alteas were like hosting all the events, and their message was like, put up the goals right up like very high, because even though if you manage to land somewhere in the middle, you're already, you know, like out there. So that being said, that was a cultural mindset that was a problem. Another one is obviously we didn't have, you know, like enough skills or resources in the region. So, you know, like this, because entrepreneurship is a thing, you can't really learn that thing at schools, even though like many universities are like pushing this thing, but it's very hard. It had to be embraced through the failure and kind of a network effect. And so yeah, really tapping into that challenge as well. And one of them being obviously a very important part. So we didn't have, you know, enough funding in the region. Helsinki as such wasn't on the international VC's radar. You know, the perception was still kind of like polar bears walking at the streets of Helsinki instead of like gifted engineers, whatnot. So we had to change this perception. You know, like those sort of challenges we had. So for these specific problems, there was established a specific missions in a way, specific organizations. One of them being obviously Alti as a kind of a melting pot of everything, the first initiative. And the idea was to build the next generation of entrepreneur-minded people. And do bear in mind, like this is, so obviously the mission was to kind of help creating the wave of entrepreneurs, but also entrepreneur-minded people. And what I mean by entrepreneur-minded people, you don't need to be an entrepreneur to be an entrepreneur-minded person. You could be working in a corporation, you could be working in NGO, university, but entrepreneur-minded person sees, you know, like problems as opportunities, you know, like opportunities to improve things. So this is a very essential thing. The second problem, you know, like not enough skills or resources. An organization called Startup Sauna was built. So Startup Sauna was an accelerator for tech companies trying to achieve the next heights. So with Startup Sauna, the idea was to connect best startups from the region with the serial entrepreneur, investor, industry expert coaches who were actually doing this coaching pro bono. So there was no money involved. These guys were just helping there for their goodwill, because at the time when they were building their ventures, like there weren't any kind of peer support network. So that was Startup Sauna, and the third one, again, like crown jewelry of our nowadays startup ecosystem, was Slush. So again, Slush also started as a very small gathering of people, something similar to this like room here, local entrepreneurs, a couple of investors coming in, and the idea was to connect these startups with investors, media, talent. So those missions, the mission was to kind of uplift the whole region, put it on the radar. And the results are actually very good. Like if you think about nowadays, this organization here, it's nowadays Europe's largest entrepreneurship society. Startup Sauna at the time, Eurasia's leading zero equity accelerator. Slush nowadays, I'm not sure if you guys heard, but it's world's #1 startup conference. So with the challenges, the mission, we had great, and still are having great results. So that being said, where am I at this stage? Am I somehow involved with this organization? No, I'm actually here, working as a journalist in Uzbekistan. So at the time, I wasn't interested in technology nor startups. For me, it was like this buzzwords, whatever happening there back home. So I was working in Uzbekistan as a freelance journalist. I was actually working undercover because Uzbekistan doesn't really give out like journalistic visa. And I was covering this natural disaster of Aral Sea. It was a very sensitive topic. You couldn't really talk to the general public about it because it's very, very secretive. Not everyone knows about it. Kind of weird. So I had a bunch of very sensitive information, interviews, footages, pictures that was all kind of filmed secretively. And I somehow had to get it across to a neighboring country, Kyrgyzstan. The problem was Wi-Fi was very lousy in the country. So I couldn't upload that stuff in the cloud. So, I had to come up with a solution. Being a very creative young woman, me and photographer kind of scouted a border control spot where you can easily come across, because we know that there wasn't that much security. Obviously, there was people involved there. So we went on there and kind of crossed our fingers and kind of were hoping no one would check our things. And my solution was to take their hard drive and tuck into my pants, kind of hide it there. Very, very creative. And we got extremely lucky because those body scanners that scan you for the metallic stuff, it was broken. How is it possible, right? Wow. I have no idea what, the punishment would be. Got to Kyrgyzstan. Such a stressful month in my life. Anyways, fast forward, got back to home. Was like, okay, that was too much. No way. I'm gonna do something else. So I was supposed to write my master's degree, and I saw an amazing and interesting opportunity. Startup Sauna was looking for a marketing person, and at this stage, I obviously heard of Startup Sauna because there was so much buzz going on around this. So I decided, I need to go to the source. I need to understand what this thing is about. And I decided to apply because, what the heck, I don't have anything to lose. And, the application form was very standard. One question was kind of, I think it was something along the, what's your one single proudest moment in your life? And as said, I didn't have anything to lose, so I wrote there, that story of me tucking the hard drive in my pants and going to Kyrgyzstan. Nothing to lose. Kind of weird. They called me a couple of days. I got to an interview. Fast forward, I landed the job, which was weird because I didn't have any prior experience about startup technology whatsoever. So for me, that was kind of a kickoff of an incredible 2-year-long learning experience where I wasn't studying this stuff by the books or at the university. I was working side by side with these incredible technical founders, these incredible mentors that we had at Startup Sauna. So, I think my background actually as a journalist helped a lot because I wasn't shy to ask stupid, naive questions. I was very much to the, being very, very, very naive. It was a great learning experience. But the thing is that I want to say, like, my story isn't anyhow unique. All these great initiatives, and nowadays there are actually like 10s of them. I just don't have enough time to talk about them all. But like all these initiatives are, you know, like they're people like me without any prior experience joining their ranks on a yearly basis. So, and you know, I've been also hiring people to start on afterward. And the thing is, what I want to tell you that for me and for many of these people who are running these organizations, the stuff that says on your diploma, you know, like your degree, your grades, they don't really matter for us because we're operating in such an ever-changing world with these startups, these initiatives, like tackling specific problems. For us, we're much more interested in your passion, your grit. You know, like you have an example to show me that, you know, you've executed stuff, that you're a fast learner, that, you know, like you are excited about this mission. So this is what I am and we're looking in the people, right? So that being said, you know, like all these young people, young kind of bright people, working, building this world-class organization, how is it really possible? You know, like what is this kind of a secret sauce for this formula? The thing is, we've had always a huge amount of help. You know, the world's best entrepreneurs, investors coming from Finland, they've been always helping us. They've been always giving us advices, always providing us feedback, always opening their doors for their network, working with us side by side, not as like, you know, I'm your manager, I'll tell you what to do, like, no, what shall we build together with you? And something that always was very important for me when running Startup was, you know, if there was something that I kind of messed up, no one told me like, you know, bad you. Like, hey, great, you learned something. You know, this was the kind of attitude and still is. So these people, you know, they're serial entrepreneurs, investors. At the time, they didn't have the similar kind of a network. They wanted to, you know, give back and to create this new generation of founders. So, for instance, again, like startups on coaches, no money involved. These guys were doing this thing pro bono, and this was something that was very hard for many of observers coming in and studying our model and not understanding, well, how is it possible, you know? So yeah, always supporting, never controlling. These are the kind of key words for that stuff. And I think this is largely linked to a very specific part, like a DNA, or Finnish DNA of giving first, you know, like pay forward. We even have a word in Finnish language, talkoot. It means, essentially means like people gathering for a cause and working all together, not expecting anything in return. And if you look at this is the group of volunteers who were building this year Slush, a huge amount of young people working there for a cause because they know that this is you know their way of learning things by doing them. And if you think about all these, you know, like young people also who were part of building these initiatives, what are they doing now? And the stuff that they're doing is incredible. They're building their own companies in the world. They're, you know, like working as an investors. They're building their own investment funds. They're part of existing startups. They're, you know, like out there solving world's biggest problems. So what is this? This is the thing that sometimes is getting dismissed. So these initiatives, they're fixing specific problems, are actually like stepping stones for the future. So these are part of the kind of educational, non-conventional educational vehicle, right? So in this environment, you can actually safely test your limits, test your abilities. You can safely fail because these people will always be there, kind of holding you and supporting you, always supporting but never controlling, right? So this is a very essential part of our vehicles. So for me, Startup was always kind of like it became a cornerstone of my professional life nowadays, and it taught me a lot about the grit, about the passion, about how to learn fast. You know that I have actually ability to learn fast by doing things. And also one thing that it taught me is that you should be never afraid of change. Never afraid of change. Because we're living in such a fast-paced world, right? You need to be always reevaluating yourself, your skill set, your organization. Is it relevant anymore? So at Startups, we achieved great results throughout the 8 years. There was over 240 companies going through our accelerator program from numerous countries, from Africa to Asia, Eastern Europe, and over 240 million euros funding, external funding raised after the program. So you would think like, wow, great, this formula is working, right? And when you have this kind of a formula that's working, what do? Well, the guys from Startup Sauna last year decided they're going to stop. So they shut down the operations. Why? You would ask, like, why? This is working, right? But the thing is, and you know, like the example of Nokia also showed, never be too comfortable. Like, they had to go back to the whiteboard and see what was our original mission. And they actually realized that, you know, the mission, it was accomplished. You know, like Helsinki is on the international ECA's radar. We have great support system in the Nordics, right? And again, same thing, you know, if you look at your kind of a business model canvas in a way, the environment in which Startup started, you know, like in the region there was no accelerators. We were one of the first ones. Nowadays we were living in the accelerator jungle, you know, where you have for every vertical a different accelerator. And again, we do have funding, you know, domestic, international. They're like on a weekly basis, VCs flying into Helsinki. So we've actually accomplished this mission. And for us as an organization and being entrepreneur-minded people, you know, we understood that we can actually just shut down the operations and leave space for the next generation to take over. And there is nowadays a new accelerator kind of running new stuff with different kind of challenges and mission in mind. So, you know, like, don't be afraid of killing your darlings, you know. Yeah, it was a great journey with Startup Sauna, and it also showed me the importance of cooperation. As it is now, if you look at this event here, you know, like it wasn't brought up by us Finns, you know, it was like this beautiful kind of culmination of different actors working together. And, you know, what made Startup Sauna very successful at the time was also we were working with these great local partners from Africa, Asia, Eastern Europe, all us, you know, like building together at the same. So that's something I will never forget. It's the importance of cooperation. I think it's also very rooted in the Nordic lifestyle. So nowadays I'm working with the tech conference community in Belarus because I just saw with Startups and all the potential that this part of the region is. And I also believe by working together we're able to uplift the whole region, you know, the whole region of Europe. And that kind of brings me to the other kind of east side of things in a way, because we with Startups have actually traveled quite a lot in Asia and in Korea. We've been traveling many times here. And something that I kind of saw maybe in this region is that sometimes I don't see the actors inside Korea working enough together. But also if you think about other neighboring countries and regions, you know, like if you put up the resources together, you have better ability to kind of raise the image of this region and just even build better companies with like abundance of skill set, right? So this is something that I kind of want to share with you, you know. We had numerous amount of visitors always coming to Startup Sauna, and that's by the way a Swedish game, so Sweden. Yeah, numerous amount of visitors coming from all over the world, you know, like studying, writing reports, taking interviews about our model and trying to understand what is this thing, what is the secret sauce of Startup Sauna. Like, we want the same thing. And, you know, like we always said that, you know, Finnish startup ecosystem is the best startup ecosystem for Finland. So this is a very essential thing, you know, like our startup ecosystem was built upon the challenges that we had in Finland, you know, like the mindset, the culture, the resources, the skills. But, you know, like your startup ecosystem or the startup ecosystem in Belarus that has completely different challenges and problems and resources as well. So you have everything that you need to make this region such that your startup ecosystem thrive. You just need to have the kind of courage to look at this thing objectively and see what are the problems and start tackling them. And my last advice is, and it was shared with the bunch of the young people who traveled first to the MIT. A professor, I'm going to mention his name now, they actually got a Nobel recently. But what he said, this professor who was super published and stuff, what he said to the bunch of these young people was, that was the one that was rolling. What he said, I need to actually tell you a story about this story here. So what I also want to say, tap into the quirkiness and the weirdness of your culture, and use it to your advantage. So this is when Startson was just beginning. The International Tech Media got very excited about this little accelerator from Finland, and they were like, how did it start? Sauna relate to startups, right? So what the people who were running Startson at the time, they were like, okay, let's do an interview naked in a sauna, and obviously this got the all possible media attention. So use your weirdness and quirkiness to your advantage. Going back to that professor, I haven't forgotten it. So this professor said to these young people is, stop writing reports, start doing things. Thank you.